Okay, we're good to start. Deputy Mayor Bilo, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Gives me a great pleasure to welcome you all here today. I'd like to extend warm greetings to our speakers today, Mayor John Tory, Farm Gill, Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Municipal Affairs.
I'm not sure if it's just me, but can't hear anything.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? Okay. It seems like we have some technical difficulties with the sound for Farm.
Turn the volume up. Yeah.
That's
Your speaker, Dave.
okay.
See if it's a different speaker.
Can you hear me now, Farm?
Turn it up.
Okay. Maybe somebody can contact Farm.
On here. Okay.
Morning, Farm. Can you hear me? Good morning.
I can see everybody. I can't hear.
Hello?
No, I cannot hear anybody. I can see everybody.
Okay, at least we're getting started.
So to everybody in the media, if you can just give us a few minutes, just trying to solve this, and should be up and running in a few minutes.
Okay. So get out of there, please.
Okay. Are we going to try to get parliamentary assistant back in?
Yeah, so we've just asked him to leave and come back, so we should be starting any minute. Thank you.
Thank you.
Harm, can you hear us
You
now?
guys hear me now?
Yep. Can you hear us? Harm, can you hear us? Raise your hand if you can hear us.
You want me to try it tomorrow?
Still, it seems like I'm unable to hear anybody.
I have a suggestion. Since we can hear him, if he was just to have a phone connection with somebody, just
I don't know if you guys
phone,
can hear me, but I'll try a
then
different
he can make his
computer.
speech
Maybe
when the
that'll
time
do the trick.
comes, and he won't hear us. But it's probably nothing he hasn't heard before. Just in order to get on with it, maybe if somebody could just give him a phone connection, he could hear us through the phone, and then because he's loud and clear coming through to us, and so if we just did that, hooked him up by phone, he could listen to us on the phone, and then make his remarks when the time comes.
Okay, we'll just start and then we'll get in touch with MP Gill or PA Gill's office and have him start. So go ahead, Deputy Mayor Bilo.
Can we confirm that Councillor Wong Tam is on the call? Because I don't see her on my screen. Is she here?
I'm back, Anna. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so good morning once again. Nice to see everybody, and we apologize for these technical difficulties, but this is the world we live today. Some days better than others, and we adapt and adjust. And Once again, welcome to our speakers today, Mayor Tory, Parliamentary Assistant Parham Gill to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Councillor Christian Wong Tam, who's the local councillor, Kevin Marshman, CEO of Toronto Community Housing Corporation, and Heather McGregor, CEO for the YWCA Toronto. So seeing that we can't be still together and at this location, we have a short video that we'd like to present and give you a sneak peek of the work that has been happening at 389 Church. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the video. When we started the TCHC transformation a few years ago, the focus became the tenant. And for that, there's different components of this transformation. Obviously, a fully funded capital plan, a new seniors unit, a decentralized management approach that is closer to the tenants, and partnerships such as the one that we have here today that provide the most appropriate services to the tenants in these units. This work requires a lot of partnerships, a lot of work with other orders of government and with partners such as the YWCA and other nonprofits. But it also requires a lot of champions and leadership at City Hall. And no one has been a bigger champion at City Hall on this transformation than Mayor John Tory. And so it gives me a great pleasure to ask the Mayor to say a few words here today. Mayor? If you can unmute yourself, Mayor.
Thank you, Anna. And if I can return the compliment and just say that on the housing file generally, we've had great leadership from you. That I appointed deputy mayors with a specific assignment as opposed to geography, and to say, could each of the deputy mayors take on something that was a priority for the city? And of course, there's nothing more important at this stage than housing generally, affordable, supportive, and all kinds of housing, and expanding the supply. And Anna Bailão has done just an excellent job as a leader in that. And so I'm pleased to be here with her today, with our colleague, Councillor Kristen Wong Tam, the local councillor, with Kevin Marshman, the president and CEO of Toronto Community Housing, of course, with Parham Gill, who we're going to hear from later, who is the parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Housing for Ontario, and last but not least, somebody who's, to me, an unsung hero in the city, and that's Heather McGregor from the YWCA. People have their views based on, I think, largely historical information about what they think the YWCA does, and they have no idea of the breadth and the depth of the community services that the YWCA provides, principally to women in our city in a whole host of areas. And of course, the very fact there are partners in this building is evidence of that. And it gives me complete confidence in the success going forward of this project, that the YWCA, together with a couple of other agencies I'll mention, are our partners in this project. And, to Deputy Mayor Bailão's comment, when you can stand here and say, there's oftentimes we're taken up at City Council with criticism of things that aren't being done. Since I became the mayor, we first took an in-depth look at Toronto Community Housing. And what has arisen out of that since then is a restructuring that allowed very proudly for us to create, for example, or recreate a seniors housing unit so that we could focus on the needs of seniors. We have, for the first time ever, a financing plan in place for Toronto Community Housing on both a capital and operating basis, year by year by year. It's committed. so that we're not going to get back into what had existed, I think, almost for decades, which was this notion of saying that there are repairs to be done and we're not going to put our money up together with the money that we can get from the other governments to make these repairs happen. I was so proud to see the quality of the housing at the Regent Park, the new TCHC building there, the quality of the modular housing units that we put in place between June and now in no time, 6 months, from site selection to people moving in. And of course, you can see the quality from that short video that we're going to have a way of affordable and supportive housing at 389 Church. And so we're moving to rectify some of the inaction of the past and to make sure that Toronto community housing can be on a solid footing and that we dramatically increase the supply of affordable and supportive housing. And, you know, I think this is evidence of the fact that notwithstanding the pandemic, we have continued to address some of the priorities of the city. We have more activity going on now with respect to the building of affordable housing in the city than has happened ever in the city, and way beyond the targets that weren't met in previous times. And those targets were way too modest to begin with. And there's people who'd argue our targets today are more modest, but I can assure you they're significantly increased and we're going to exceed them. And I think that is exactly what people would want us to do. I am happy today to announce, as part of this overall program that fits under a number of those different headings, that we are officially opening 120 1 and 2 bedroom permanent, affordable, supportive homes at 389 Church Street, which was once an underutilized 13-story TCHC building in a bad state of repair. It was all of those things. And now you can see what it is. It's in a good state of repair, the best state of repair. It is going to have in it 120 of these new homes that are affordable and supportive for people. These self-contained apartments will create a safe and inclusive and supportive environment for Indigenous and non-Indigenous women, gender diverse people, and youth and seniors who have experienced or are at the risk of experiencing homelessness. And this is the kind of project we have to have in place that can deal with both people who would otherwise become homeless and those who have actually experienced homelessness. Residents will be moving in shortly, with most of them in by the end of May 2021, because normally with these projects, people move in on a phased basis. Today is a very good example of the work that we are doing under a number of those headings that I mentioned in utilizing and fixing up property that we already own. Because I think if you can make those properties more supportive and more habitable, that's going to be a faster place to start to provide more relief for people and more permanent supportive homes for people. This specific building was a part of that huge backlog you all would have read about and heard about, and in the case of our journalist colleagues, written about. And because we've had some money from the federal government for this, and because we've set aside city money for the 10-year period, we are now in the process of undertaking probably what is the biggest repair program in the history of Toronto community housing. And this building is a perfect example of that work actually getting done. The modernization of 389 Street was commissioned by TCHC, which is the owner, and therefore took the lead on the modernization of the building. And it transformed what was something that was shelter-like before into now 120 self-contained apartments. So we've created homes in this building. We've created not just homes, but they are homes. And you can see from the video that they're homes that are going to be comfortable homes for people. But the supports together with these new homes provide a much better foundation upon which some of the people that have faced some very real obstacles and struggles in their lives can get themselves on a more positive course. On top of the 120 apartments that I've made reference to, we also have during the pandemic added 100 new affordable supportive homes in the form of our 2 modular housing projects that went from site selection to people moving in 6 months. From June site selection to December, people moving in, and we're going to be repeating that. And I think it is something, again, that is one of the good news stories out of the pandemic, if there is such a thing. And I think that we're going to be continuing to repeat that with the cooperation of the other governments. These are the ways in which we're going to achieve our Housing TO action plan goals. And we have to look at new and innovative ways to do these things, but also some of the old-fashioned remedies by like just setting aside the money as we've done in our budget for the last couple of years to actually bring about these repairs. We have so many people that are relying upon us to make these projects happen and to make sure they have the supports contained within them to allow people to get back on their feet. Many of the people that you see in shelters or that you see on the street or that you see in encampments are people who face very significant obstacles in their lives beyond their experience being homeless. And it's all connected. They're good people. They just have struggles in their lives that we need to help them with so that they can, and it can start with a stable a kind of home. They need the stability that comes with a home. And if you combine the supports with that stability, you can have quite a successful outcome for these people who are our fellow residents of the city of Toronto. So funding becomes very important, and good partners. And I want to thank the YWCA. I mentioned earlier, it's an organization that I have profound respect and affection for. They have a proud history in our city, and it continues to be built upon each and every day. And Heather and her team will do a great job being the lead people managing this building. They've leased it from TCHC, and they will manage the property and oversee the delivery of support services to the tenants. And we could have picked absolutely nobody better. The building includes things like a pottery studio, programs that focus on celebrating Indigenous cultural heritage of the residents. And that's a learning experience for everybody who lives in that building as well, one that we should all have. And so I want to say thank you as well to Wigwaman, to Elizabeth Fry, to Margaret's, to the Native Women's Resource Center, and to Inspiration Studio, because they're all part of a package of supports that will make this a very, very special place at 389 Church. This is a model that is good to combine these kinds of wraparound supports with better housing. Finally, I want to thank the provincial government. They made a commitment towards this project. The city itself put up $20 million to make this project happen. And the provincial government put up to the capital side $17.850 million. And I thank them for that. And they've also committed to some operating supports for a couple of years. We have to discuss the longer term because 2 years is the blink of an eye. But they have stepped forward with the capital money, which is was necessary for this project to proceed, and with some of the early operating funding. And I look forward to continuing to work with the province, with Deputy Mayor Bilow, to get a more general and broader commitment to operating support for supportive housing. Right now, for example, those modular housing projects I referred to don't have committed operating support. We need that. It isn't supportive housing without the supports, and it isn't supportive housing without the supports being funded, most of them being healthcare related, and therefore a part of properly of the provincial healthcare system. So I thank Parliamentary Assistant Gill and his Minister Steve Clark for the help they have given on this project, and look forward to discussing with them how they can help on a broader basis. And I'm confident that we can find a way to work together to make sure more and more of these kinds of projects and the modular projects can be available to people. I think we should be proud of getting to this point and proud of this project. This is a project that is a model and will be a model under the leadership of the YWCA and Toronto Community Housing. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. It's the right kind of investment to make. And on that note, I would like to introduce now the Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, MPP Parm Gill, to give some remarks. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Tory, for that kind introduction. Great to be with you again. Second time, twice. I guess we made an announcement last week on Thursday, and this week again with Deputy Mayor Anna Bilow, and also to be joined today by Councillor Kristen Wong Tam for this wonderful announcement. And I'm obviously here and pleased to join all of you on behalf of Minister Clark to celebrate these new supportive housing units for vulnerable women in downtown Toronto. I know how life changing it can be for women and families to have safe and secure home with the supports that they need. And this new project, which received nearly $18 million, as pointed out by the mayor, from the province, will truly make a difference in the lives of women with 120 new supportive rental apartments. Our government knows that COVID-19 continues to impact vulnerable people in our communities, including those who are homeless or at the risk of becoming homeless. That's why we have put in place a range of measures to help protect Ontarians in these challenging times. Our government has invested nearly $1.5 billion in the City of Toronto for COVID-related financial assistance through the Safe Restart Agreement, with over $500 million directly helping the city with operating expenses and nearly $1 billion supporting transit, which is essential, of course, for frontline workers and residents in and around Toronto. Ontario has also invested $189 million through the Social Services Relief Fund to help the city and its social service providers support the most vulnerable, bringing Ontario's total housing and homelessness investment in Toronto to $395 million this fiscal year. This funding is being put towards shelters, isolation centers, food banks, rent banks, emergency services, charities, and nonprofits so they can deliver critical services across this vast city. I want to thank the city for all they're doing to help vulnerable people and keeping Torontonians safe. Together, we're all working hard to create solutions and provide much needed affordable housing for low income households. We know there is a strong need for affordable housing. That is why our government is working hard to improve the community housing system and increase housing supply. We know this is critical. And I want to congratulate everyone here for working together on this great project. And, obviously projects like this take a great deal of coordination, effort, and a commitment from everyone that's involved. So I know that has come true, and it's great to be with all of you once again. And thank you for allowing me to say a few words. And I'd like to now turn it over to Councillor Kristen Wong-Tam.
Thank you so much, Parliamentary Assistant Parm Grill. We are thrilled to have you, as well as Mayor Tory, Deputy Mayor Bailao, Heather McGregor. Couldn't say much more in terms of singing your praises. I want to associate all of what Mayor Tory said about you. You are an exceptional treasure to our city. Kevin, I'll be introducing you shortly, so I'll save those remarks for that. To all of you, I'm very, very pleased to be here to welcome all of you, but also to just say thank you, to thank each and every single one of you for coming out today and to join us at this press conference. This has been an incredibly long journey, I would say, for 389 Church Street. It has been sitting and nestled in the heart of our community in the downtown core for some time, and I think that the mayor was absolutely right when he said that it was probably not in great shape, and we know that not just from the state of good repair, but also the fact that the building was just woefully poorly designed from the get-go. It was at a different time when we, I think our forefathers and foremothers designed the building and said we were going to put people into pod-like settings. The ceiling heights were incredibly low. The walls were just overwhelming. And I would say that if you wanted to find a place to be well, to feel safe and feel nurtured, the 0389 Church Street, the way the interior was designed and laid out, that was not the ideal space. So there has been a significant amount of work and rethinking, and I'm really pleased to know that it's not just the high quality finishes that was so evident from the video, but also the fact that it was really designed with the human being in mind. So that means those individuals who will ultimately be living in these 120 new homes, it was designed and repurposed for them, to make sure that they had a safe and comfortable place to be who they are so that they can actually rebuild their lives. Homelessness is oftentimes something that we talk about, and yes, of course, it gets very emotional because it is a very difficult topic to deal with, to unpack, to find solutions for. But today is a great example of what happens when we can build partnerships together. And it's more of these partnerships that we, of course, want to seek and be able to do it even in more rapid pace than we have done in the last 6 months, as Mayor Tory has noted. And I can't imagine a better example of how do we repurpose aged housing that is environmentally not sound, the housing that has been poorly designed, housing that has not met the needs of individuals who we strive to serve. This is such an exceptional example. And I would argue that if you can unlock the potential of 389 Church Street, there are probably very few other properties that will meet the threshold of how challenging such a building is. And some would say that it's taken some time. Absolutely, it did. But we are here today, and that is something that for us, each and every single one of us, to celebrate. And we know that the significant challenges in the city are so great, and especially when it comes to housing and trying to keep people from falling into further homelessness, which is why, again, I need to stress the partnerships and being able to work together in a collaborative fashion in a constructive manner that will allow us all to achieve our goals. When three orders of government step together, surrounded by and cheered on by community agencies like the Y, government agencies and partners like TCHC, there's nothing that we cannot overcome. And that today is a big success story worth celebrating. I'd like to also echo my thanks to the YWCA once again, Wigwamin, Margaret's, and all those other community collaborators. And of course, the local community. This is a neighborhood that likes to say yes. We have said yes to a number of different affordable housing and supportive housing initiatives, and I'm pretty confident that our community will continue to say yes in the days, the weeks, the months, and the years to come, because that's who we are, an inclusive and affirming community, and we want to see more of that. A special note of thanks to Deputy Mayor Bailao and to Mayor Tory. These two individuals have worked nonstop. Not just because of the pandemic, but because that's who they are. If you don't know them very well, you'll know that they are capable of moving at extraordinary speed to get things done. And I have just been in awe just to see how much passion they have when it comes to building and expanding housing and trying to do everything we can as a city under their leadership to eradicate homelessness once and for all. And so for that, I want to tip my hat to them and to say thank you once again. Now, Kevin Marshman is obviously the CEO of TCHC. He has a very difficult job, but I have actually found that in the short time that we've worked together, Kevin is an exceptional leader in every single sense of the word. He is fast in his response, and he is also dedicated and caring. I know that he leads a very talented team at TCHC who's tasked with doing some really difficult work. And I want to thank Kevin for being here, but also for his steadfast leadership, because without him, we wouldn't even necessarily be going in the strong direction that we are. And I know he's going to retire soon, but I know that he's not going to be leaving us in a weak position or even a modest position, but we're heading into some strong weather and winds, and there's lots of wind in our sails because of Kevin. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wong-Tam, for those very kind comments, and good morning, everyone. I can remember when 389 Church Street came to the board. I was a newly appointed director at that time, and so it is a real honor and a pleasure for me to be here today to celebrate such an innovative project that is adding, as has already been noted, 120 new affordable supportive homes for Indigenous and non-Indigenous women, for diverse gender people, youth, and seniors who have experienced or at risk of experiencing homelessness. These new residents will benefit from having a safe, clean, affordable place to live, from being able to be connected to social supports to enhance their quality of life. And that is just so critical. A house is one thing, but the supports are really critical in this particular case. Toronto Community Housing plays an essential role in providing social housing in the city and in helping to build vibrant communities with our many partners. Over the past year, Toronto Community Housing has partnered with the city to find innovative solutions for some of Toronto's most vulnerable residents during the pandemic. More than 400 individuals who have been experiencing homelessness were permanently housed in our buildings and provided with wraparound supports through the city's rapid rehousing program. And I really want to thank the city for their partnership in that. Additionally, we provided interim housing to 70 families by refurbishing vacant units in Regent Park that were slated for demolition as part of that revitalization. And we are pleased to add the 120 homes at 389 Church to those solutions. As you heard Mayor Tory say, Toronto Community Housing undertook substantial repairs to refurbish 389 Church so that it could be used for affordable supportive housing. And as Councillor Wong-Tam had mentioned, we took a building that everyone agreed was being underused primarily due to its outdated design and converted it into a very purposeful 120 unit 1 and 2 bedroom building that can provide supportive housing to individuals. I also would like to recognize the great work of the YMCA in Toronto. Sorry, the YWCA, I apologize for that, in Toronto, and its partners who will be operating and providing supports in this building. The contribution that those organizations make to this city cannot be stated highly enough. They reach, some of the most vulnerable and assist people across a broad range of services. and like Mayor Tory, I am continued to be impressed by the vast nature of the work that they do to support, Torontonians. So let me conclude by saying that on behalf of the Toronto community housing team, that we are very proud to be part of this project. We are proud of the partners who are involved in it. We're proud of providing innovative solutions that are helping families and individuals to have a home to call their own and to access quality social services that they can rely on. And with that, I would like to thank everyone, and I would like to invite Heather McGregor, the Chief Executive Officer of YWCA, to deliver her remarks. Heather?
Thank you very much, Kevin. And we are the YWCA. This is really a momentous occasion, and I'm so proud to be here today. And I thank for your kind words about the YWCA. We really appreciate that. So, as we all know, Toronto is facing a massive housing crisis. And through many years of partnership, I know how committed the city is to addressing this challenge head on. And I'm very, very moved by the work that the mayor and the deputy mayor are working on this particular issue. It makes me very, very proud to be a Torontonian, to know the commitment that you have to affordable and supportive housing, and particularly your understanding about how important the supportive component of housing is. Really appreciate that. And it feels so good to be here in partnership with the city, the province, and the other community agencies that have made this project a reality. I think I should do a call out because it's been mentioned about the design. I should really call out Hilditch Architects, who were the architects for this program, who really have a special skill in designing housing that really meets the needs of people who require supportive housing. So I really believe that this affordable supportive housing for women and gender diverse people is a real win for our community. And we're so proud to be a part of the solution in these very troubling times. The work of many individuals and organizations brought us here today. I would like to thank again Mayor Tory and our partners, Wigwaman, the Elizabeth Fry Society, Margaret's, and we had advice from Women's College Hospital, and a special mention to the Native Women's Resource Center, who will provide Indigenous programming, and for the Inspiration Studios that will provide therapeutic pottery programs and a retail site. Also like to thank our incredible YWCA staff who have worked so hard in many, many different ways to develop the programming, to work on the financing of the project, which has been complex, and I thank them very much. So at the YWCA, we believe in and support women. We believe in the resilience of the human spirit to persist despite circumstances that are sometimes so terrible and out of our and their control. To come together as a community to lift one another up is important. We believe that with the right services, all residents of Toronto can thrive. And we believe it begins with partnership and with courage to take these steps forward. We're so grateful to our partners. The pandemic is challenging us in ways we could not have imagined, but at the YWCA, we remain hopeful that with the right kind of community investments, the right policies, and only the best intentions, we can and we will do right by our community. We're very, very excited again to be in this wonderful neighborhood and so thrilled about this much needed supportive housing that will surely have a very positive impact. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to all the speakers. And as many have said, the need for affordable housing, and in particular supportive housing, existed pre-COVID. But there's no doubt that COVID highlighted the need to act quickly, which we have been acting quickly, as the Mayor said, with the first 2 modular housing being open in less than 6 months. And the work continues to put shovels on the ground for hundreds of units this year. But also, it highlighted that the most social, the most humane, the most financially responsible way to actually deal with homelessness is with supportive housing. And that is why this project, Innovative Solutions, making sure that we use all our stock available, making sure that we use and create new supportive housing, the bricks and mortar is important. But as Heather said, the supportive services is essential. And that's why I think we at the city will be loud on this issue. Municipalities have been downloaded social housing decades ago. I don't think anybody will allow to be downloaded supportive services. So we'll be continuing to advocate to have a solution, to have a partnership with all 3 orders of government coming together to deliver supportive housing, because we know that this is the most financial, the most humane, and the right choice for Torontonians and for anybody experiencing homelessness. So with that, I will now pass it on to questions and answers from the media.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. As Deputy Mayor Bialow said, we'll open the floor to media questions. As a reminder, it's 1 question, 1 follow-up. When we call on you, you'll have to unmute yourself as well. We do also have Abby Bond from the Housing Secretariat on the line. So first up, we have Ashley Legasic from News Talk 1010. Go ahead, Ashley.
Hi, thank you for taking my questions. These will be for Mayor Tory. Mayor Tory, I know we're still a ways away, but considering the Premier's comments yesterday that an announcement could be coming next week in regards to reopening the economy, but having Toronto reopen later, I'm just wondering what your understanding is so far in terms of a tentative reopening date for Toronto, if one has been set.
Mayor,
Sorry, Mayor, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. No date has been set as yet, but we have been in continuous discussions with the province, myself with the Premier and with other parts of the government. And I think what we all want to do, and we've taken a first significant step in that the schools will be reopened. And I think the later opening of the schools in Toronto is respecting of the fact that we've had a more acute situation here, and there's a need for Toronto Public Health to have all of the supports and measures in place to make sure those schools can, in fact, be reopened and stay open safely. As for the opening of business and other organizations that are closed because of the stay-at-home order and other provincial restrictions, obviously we would like to see those done as soon as possible. But I think the priority has been to make sure the schools reopen safely. And then I think that people should find it not surprising that the reopening that I'm sure will take place after that is going to be on a staged basis, as it was in the spring, where you don't suddenly open everything up and say, we're back to business as usual, because that leads to a very high risk of a 3rd or 4th wave of the virus. So I think there will be changes made to begin the process of reopening, but I think, what you're going to hear on Monday may be the very beginnings of that and more of a timetable than it is some big, single day on which everything's going to happen all at once. I don't think that's going to happen.
Thank you. And this is something that you've spoken about quite extensively. The province this morning has provided some clarity on pet grooming services. If you have seen the regulation, do you believe it's clear enough? And if you haven't seen the regulation, I'm happy to read it out to you.
If you want to read it, because my understanding was they were to clarify things today such that certainly animals in particular need, and a lot of people don't realize that the grooming needs of animals are related to their health. It's not just a matter of aesthetics and appearance. It's related to their health, and they were to clarify things. And I think it's probably happened while I've been on this call with you, so I have not heard it. If it's brief, if it's pages long, you probably shouldn't read it in the best interest of everybody else concerned. But if it's something short, I can tell you whether it goes the distance in terms of what we were seeking, which was some clarity for pet owners and for pet grooming businesses.
Yeah, so I will just read out the most prominent line, which is services that are strictly necessary to prevent an animal from requiring foreseeable and reasonably imminent veterinary care.
I think this goes some distance to addressing the needs that pet owners in particular had identified, because they're the most important people, because they speak for the pets who can't speak for themselves. And I think that this suggests that there are some things that dogs have to have done that some people associate with aesthetics and appearance, but in fact have to do with their health. And I think that wording goes a step in the direction of saying if some of these things are necessary to keep these dogs healthy, as we would all want, and to prevent them from suffering, this will help. And it's a help, I'll put it that way.
Okay, thank you. And last question is Momin from 680. Go ahead, Momin.
Thank you. Mayor Tory, if I just go back to Ashley's question about the restart, I just wanted to know if you or somebody from the city will be asking the province for specifics of what you'd like to see in terms of a safe restart in Toronto and what you would like that to look like.
Between the medical officer of health and myself and others from the city government, we're in continuous contact with the province, and they've been very good throughout about consulting with us and having us be able to give them some advice with respect to Toronto. I will say that as mayor of the biggest city in the province and the biggest city in the region, one thing I have said is that I believe that when we move to reopen, it should be done on a regional basis. I think we saw in the pre-Christmas period that if you try to take a region that functions very much as a region in terms of how people get around and how they live their lives and piece it off into different treatments for different parts of the region, human beings, the way they are, they will, go to the place where they can go and do the things they're allowed to do there if they can't do it somewhere else. And it defeats the purpose of having, having rules that stage the reopening, for example. So I think what's been done with schools is a good example of how to do it right. In the Toronto, Peel, and York, which had more acute experience with COVID-19, were treated differently than other parts of the province. So I hope that will be certainly taken into account. With respect to the specifics of what should open when, we get really good advice from our medical officer of health and her team, and we will rely on that advice, and we will work then with the province to make sure that we get things open as quickly as possible, but no quicker than should be the case in order to keep people safe and healthy and not get all the gains that we've made during this terrible period of lockdown.
So just based on what you've said there, are you hoping to see regions like Toronto, Peel, York, Durham kind of governed by, if not the same rules, relatively similar rules?
I think the benefits to be derived from regional treatment in this big region, the GTHA of 6 or 7 million people, and the fact that people can move around in the region as they've proven they would do before Christmas is very advisable. It's not absolutely necessary in every single instance, but I think the notion of regional treatment is very advisable. There are some who will disagree with that because they think they're being lumped in with Toronto or Peel or this or that, but I just think what you have to do is what's sensible and what's going to be effective at making sure that if we have wrestled this virus, at least in part, to the ground, that we can keep the virus down. We just don't need to go through another wave, another set of closures of schools or businesses or other organizations. It's too hard on people, their health, their mental health, their economic health, and we need to do something that's going to be effective, that may be more gradual than some want. And I know businesses are suffering and so are people, but I think we have to do what makes sense based on medical advice. And that's going to be the most important thing, is the medical advice, not political advice, not political considerations, the medical advice as to how we keep this virus down, which is where we want it, down and eventually out.
Okay, that's it for today, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.
Thank you.